Alright, welcome back everyone. So in today's episode we're going to be taking a look at whether or not we are heading for a recession and what impact this may have for our investment strategy. Now whether we look at growth stocks, dividend stocks or crypto, there's been large sell-offs all throughout of 2022. The S&P 500 for instance in the last few months has dropped 16.5%. And although I rarely talk about macroeconomics on this channel, some key points to make is that in the US, there is an inflation rate of 8.5%, and there's an official statement in the UK where inflation has risen to 9% back in April 2022. And so the key point here is that when we have high inflation, which is definitely the case in both the US and the UK, we then have to look at interest rates. And so currently in the US, we have an interest rate of 0.75%, and in the UK, we have an interest rate of 1%. And so just focusing on the UK now, given that we have very similar statistics for the US as well, the Bank of England will generally increase the interest rate during periods of high growth and then reduce that value whenever there's a high probability of a recession. But the reality of what we're seeing in the UK, for instance, from 0.75% to 1%, some could argue that this increase is actually speeding up the process for a recession to take place. But from the Bank of England's perspective, their hands are tied during the COVID period with the vast amount of quantitative easing, and the same is true in the US, but there's a large amount of money that is currently in circulation. But these types of cycles happen all the time. And although most of us have seen a decrease in our account portfolio, and with the likes of the S&P 500, we can look at this graph to get an insight into how investors are reacting to current market conditions. This is a lead indicator, whereas when we look at macroeconomics, such as the rate of inflation, these are known as lag indicators. And we can see that the general stock market has been selling off. And so that does suggest that there are some more difficult times ahead and pinpointing towards a recession either taking place now or sometime in the near future. But recessions are not a bad thing. If we take a look at Peloton, for instance, this is a company that during the COVID period, also known as a COVID stock, was hitting peaks at around $162 with a current price of $14. Now, fortunately for myself, this is a stock that I never invested in as I never believed in the long-term potential of the company. But that's not to say that there are other companies that I've invested in which haven't been performing too well. Cognex is probably the one company that's in the most red at 35%, but it is a small holding that I own. But when it comes to experiencing recessions, they can be argued to be a positive thing because if we're always in periods of growth, then for those companies that are just burning through capital and for even early stage startup companies which are receiving large amount of money during their initial seed rounds, a recession prevents silly companies from taking too much money and being close to worthless. And that is more prominent within companies that are focused on growth. And so during this period where you have a recession, money is scaled back from investors, and for companies that have a prosperous future ahead of them, provided that a lot of these companies have a pool of money that they can use and not burning into their reserves, having enough runway for the next 18 months or more, these types of companies are gonna still be around after recessions take place, and investors as well will not be too crazy. And so for those key startup companies or even growth companies listed on the stock exchange, there'll be a sensible allocation of money that is geared towards the most successful companies out there. And so some of you out there may have seen a decrease in profits or their account value might be in the red. A few months ago, my return was close to 30% and now it's at 18%. I suspect individuals that focus primarily on growth-based stocks have been hit even more so. I have other accounts dedicated to growth stocks which are around negative 20 or 30%, but focusing on day-to-day investors like myself and hopefully you who's watching, provided you still have a job and you have income available to invest into certain companies, then that is a great position to be in because we can comfortably invest a certain amount of our income every single month. For anyone who has a large pool of money and they're planning on investing, still be a little bit careful because even though companies are dropping sometimes all the way down 70 or 80%, just be a little bit careful because there could be more of a drop still to come. But personally, I have not been holding back. I've still been investing in the stock market. There's been a lot of opportunities with growth-based stocks out there. A couple of companies that I've mentioned and dedicated videos to in the past, but the likes of Shopify and also Netflix. We have no idea where the bottom is. And so when you look at different stocks that you're considering to buy, they may drop even further. Allocating a sensible amount of money that in the event that the stock drops another 20 or 30%, you're still comfortable and happy to buy in because you have more cash on the side to invest in. And for those investors out there who have potentially invested all of their savings, perhaps you had the choice to sell out while the market was dropping, or maybe you're looking back and thinking, well, back when there was, say, a 30% gain, 20%, whatever that figure was, you had the ability to sell out and you didn't. Just be aware that these recessions have a cyclical pattern. There will be more recessions in the future. In fact, there's a 100% probability that there'll be a recession in the future, and there's a 100% probability that there will be bull and bearish cycles in the future as well. It's the nature of investing. And for anyone that is a long-term investor like myself, you're going to experience these processes and emotions. Now, of course, with that said, with my account, I'm still profitable. For most people out there, investing £26,000 isn't a small amount of money. It's also not the largest amount. But being able to ride these waves makes it a lot more easier when you are a long-term investor. It's even more easier when you focus on dividend-based companies. For anyone who focuses on growth-based stocks, even crypto as well, you'll have to make the decision if you want to start buying into these companies. Personally, I've already made the decision to buy certain growth-based companies with the expectation that these can drop even further, but I still have a large portion of cash, which is effectively my runway money, which allows me to invest extremely comfortably. And so individuals out there that maybe have £200 or £300 invested, if they've allocated £2,000 on the side, then you have a similar amount of runway. So always think about your investment strategy in terms of percentages rather than the actual full amount that you're trying to invest in. And so hopefully this video was helpful, trying to understand how recessions are not always a bad thing. There's always opportunities in the stock market. So do let me know in the comments below if your investment strategy is changing, assuming that we're heading for a recession. Let me know in the comments below. And so as always, new videos are posted each week. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.
You said I couldn't give you what you need, and we've grown too far apart to see that I've tried